This week, we're really diving into the legacy of, well, you could say, a true Atlanta icon, Wanda Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, we lost Wanda way too soon at just 58. But her impact on radio, comedy, even just the city as a whole is just undeniable.
Yeah.
And we're digging into an article today from the Atlanta Voice, which, if you don't know, they've been like a cornerstone of Atlanta's Black community since way back in the 60s.
Yep.
So it's really fitting that they would be the ones to kind of, honor her in this way.
Absolutely, yeah. The Atlanta Voice, they have such a significant place in our city, amplifying those voices that don't always get heard, And Wanda, she was undeniably one of those voices for sure.
Okay, so let's sort of unpack this a bit. The article really dives deep right into Wanda's connection with Atlanta and specifically her time on V103. For so many people, she was V103, especially during those years with, another Atlanta veteran, I guess you could say, Frank Ski,
right,
on the Frank and Wanda in the Morning Show.
Yeah, and that's not something to just gloss over. V103, it's not just another station on the dial, right?
Yeah.
It has this deep connection to Atlanta's Black community.
Yeah.
Like, it's been a platform for voices and stories, Like, think about it, segments like the Strawberry Letter, right? Where else are you going to find that?
Right, exactly.
That real talk, that advice. She was like a confidant to thousands of listeners. It was a different time.
It was, and you're right. And I think that's what made it so impactful, Wanda being a mainstay there for so long. It speaks volumes, about who she was and what she meant to people. But hold on. Because her career, it explodes way beyond just, the radio waves, right? I mean, this woman was writing for Def Comedy Jam.
Wow.
Def Comedy Jam.
What's fascinating to me about that is just how seamlessly she moved between all these different spaces. I mean, radio, stand-up comedy, writing for a show as iconic as Def Comedy Jam.
Yeah.
It just speaks to not just her talent, which was, undeniable, but also her versatility. Like, she could do it all. She could do it all really well. Her writing on Def Comedy Jam, it was pivotal because she brought in this Southern female perspective that was it was rare in the 90s. You know what I mean? And she influenced a whole generation of comedians coming up after her.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
Yeah. And you think about her comedic talents, they weren't confined to radio either, right? Yeah. She lands roles in, some of Tyler Perry's biggest films.
Oh, yeah.
Medea Goes to Jail, Medea's Witness Protection. I mean, talk about iconic.
Huge.
That movie was pure chaos in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Wanda held her own against Tyler Perry, which, come on, that is no easy feat.
No, you gotta bring it.
All right.
You gotta bring it when you're on screen with Medea.
Exactly.
And those films, they hold a significant place in Black entertainment. Yeah. I mean, box office hits, yes.
Yeah.
But they also resonated with a huge audience, and they just add another layer to Wanda's reach and really showcase her range. Like, she could be funny, but she could also act. She brought a certain something to those roles.
It's really kind of incredible, though, right?
Yeah.
Radio host, comedy writer, actress. Like, is there anything Wanda couldn't do?
Right. It's true. She really was, a multifaceted talent.
Yeah.
And speaking of talent, what about her humor, though? I mean, what made Wanda's humor stand out to you? Was it more observational, you think, or was it more like slapstick? How would you define it?
It's funny you should say that because I was thinking about this earlier, actually, reading through this article from the Atlanta Voice and, thinking back on her work. And I'm struck by how she could be, hilarious, right? Obviously.
Right.
But then also, incredibly relatable at the same time. She wasn't afraid to, poke fun at herself, and I think that's what really resonated with people. Like, she was that funny friend we all have, just, on a much, much larger stage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She just had this presence, this undeniable presence about her, whether it was on the radio, in stand-up, on the big screen. You felt it. And you can really feel that impact, too, and just the outpouring of love since her passing.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of that, the article, it highlights some of the tributes from other entertainers. And the one from Lonely Love, I got to say, that one really got to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she talked about how Wanda was, this incredible comedic talent, but also just always so supportive of others in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's clear that Wanda was deeply respected and admired by her peers. And Lonely Love's words, they really paint a picture of someone who wasn't just funny, but also, incredibly kind and generous with her time and her spirit.
Yeah, and Lonnie even mentioned something called like the Cat Williams incident.
Oh, right, right.
She didn't really go into detail, but it definitely sounds like there's a whole story there,
Oh, I'm sure.
It makes you think like she was really at the center of it all. She had a front row seat to some of like comedy's most like talked about moments.
For sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was definitely there for some interesting times, I'm sure. It really does make you realize, though, that, like, we only see these little snippets
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these public figures' lives. There's always more to the story, more layers to uncover.
100%. But even without, knowing all the ins and outs of every little thing, it's evident, right? Wanda Smith, she left a mark on Atlanta and really beyond. And I think what's really hitting home for me is how much she represented like a certain era of Atlanta, a time when radio it felt so immediate, so connected to the community, Like you could just feel her warmth and her humor just like radiating through the speakers.
That's a great point. It was a different time, it really was. She wasn't just on the airwaves. She was part of the fabric of the city. And that's a legacy that I think continues. Even as we see, the media landscape changing so rapidly around us, it's like she still holds a place.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, how will history view her career? Like what will be the lasting impact of someone like Wanda Smith? What do you think?
That's the question, isn't it? How does Wanda Smith's journey,
right,
from radio to stand-up to even the big screen, how does that reflect the larger story of Black entertainment as a whole?
Right.
And how did she, in her own way, help shape that story? That's something I hope you'll ponder on.
That's a really powerful thought to leave us with. And I think for anyone listening out there, if you're unfamiliar with Wanda Smith's work, do yourself a favor, check it out. Her comedic timing was impeccable.
Oh, it was.
And that laugh.
Infectious.
Yeah. She will definitely be missed. But her legacy, that will live on, especially here in Atlanta.
Absolutely. A true Atlanta legend.